You're listening to the APSE Podcast, the Association of People Supporting Employment First, with your host, Chris Davies. Today's podcast is brought to you by Reach for Resources, a nonprofit providing individualized, competitive employment services for people with disabilities. We believe our community is a better place when it is inclusive and everyone, regardless of ability, has the chance to be successful. Learn more at reachforresources.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Minnesota APSE Podcast. It's hard to believe that this is Season 6, Episode 1. Kicking off the spring here with a fabulous guest. Claire Braun is with us here today. Welcome, Claire. Great to have you. Claire's a very fascinating person, and I know you're going to enjoy learning all about Claire, in just a moment. I am your host, Chris Davies, and I think, for anybody out there that's joined us today for the first time, particularly, we'd love to give you a very hearty welcome. I'm glad you found us. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what APSE, APSE, Association for People Supporting Employment First, is all about. It's truly the only national organization, membership organization, that solely promotes community integrated employment for all. And we do a lot of work in areas of training and resources and lobbying, but it is truly the only organization that stands for that 100%. And we have a state chapter here in Minnesota, which brings us, here today. We do a variety of things here in Minnesota. One of them is this fabulous podcast that I am very lucky to be a part of. So glad you found us, and welcome. Before we start to learn more about Claire and her story, it's fascinating. Just to tell you, she has adopted fostered 75 children in her lifetime, and that's just the beginning of her story. So very excited to be here today with you, Claire, and to learn more about your journey. For anybody, we like to make sure that we give visual descriptions for anybody that would benefit from that. Today, well, first off, I am a white male, and I'm bald. I'm pretty clean shave. I did it yesterday, Claire. So this is, about 1 day growth here. And I am wearing a very nice soft sweater that my girlfriend got me. It's brown cashmere type sweater and blue jeans. And so now I'm going to ask Claire to describe visually herself, and then you can just go ahead and kick it right off, Claire, and telling us more about yourself from that point.
Thank you, Chris. That was very nice. Yes, I am not a spring chicken, even though spring is coming. I've been around for quite a number of years, and I'm getting up there in age. But I'm supposed to be retired, but they say that means that you get more and more tired day by day. I am fully employed, if you understand what I'm saying, by the responsibilities that I have on a daily basis. What I'm wearing, I have short hair, and even though I am technically 76 years old, I make sure that my hair is kept short, and also I have to say I dye it from time to time so that it doesn't appear that I'm quite as old as I am. I'm wearing a flowered top, and it's multiple flowers. Blue is my favorite color, so of course blue is there. And I have a pair of...
Mine too.
Too. Okay. Yes,
see? I'm all about blue.
Blue is good. And then, of course, I have blue pants on as well. So blue is a good color, and lots of fun to find it out in the community when you're shopping. Oh, there's something blue. Do I really need that or not? But anyway, yes, I have been. My husband and I initially were married just 1 month after I graduated from college at Southwest State in Marshall. I went there and graduated in 1973 and was married in July of 73. But the entire time that I attended school there, earning my teaching degree and with a major in education and a minor in art and music, I also, I don't know if you're aware or not, that school was designed to help a lot of the war veterans from the Vietnam War to be rehabilitated, educated, and promote them to move into the community and be successful. They had developed programs there in the university as well, that anyone that had a disability could receive services in the format of rehabilitation for range of motion, walking at the parallel bars, doing all kinds of therapeutic sorts of things. And they also had wheelchair basketball. So they were one of the first teams to develop, or schools to develop wheelchair basketball. And so, I was intrigued by all of that, and I volunteered in the gyms there to walk veterans at parallel bars, or actually other folks, not only veterans, but other folks attended school there because it was wheelchair accessible. And so I learned a lot about folks with different abilities, if you will, which did not mean that they couldn't learn at the school, but also they needed extra accommodations. And so that made me more aware of what to do if you wanted to help somebody that had special needs. And so I graduated in 73, married my husband. We decided that we were going to have a family, but how that family would be formulated would be questionable, since initially I had some questionable, if you will, abilities to carry a child successfully. I did have surgery. That was corrected, and my first child was born 51 years ago. And after I had her, we had also looked into adoption and foster care and whatnot, and taken all the training and everything to be foster parents. And so we were on the list. And the first thing you know, we were offered a boy. And that boy was 6 years old. And he had spina bifida and was paralyzed from the waist down and did not walk. But he had this desire to walk. He was determined to walk no matter what. And so we looked into all sorts of resources as to how can we make this happen? Is this possible? And, we were kind of new at the situation. I was 25 years old at the time. And even though by that time, honestly, you think you have learned it all, you're not even close. But in any event, we I took this boy in, and he was fostered initially, and we tried to help him to learn how to walk. And we were in an apartment building at that time, and they had a swimming pool in our building at the end of the hall. And so he would take a few steps holding onto my hands and whatever. And then we took him to the pool every day and started him walking. Well, we had our first appointment at Gillette Children's Hospital. And at that time, it was on a different site than where it is today, because we're talking years and years and years ago. And all the doctors stood around his stretcher wondering, what his situation was or whatever. And of course, we were the new kids on the block, so we didn't have all the expertise as a new parent of a special needs child. So we said, well, his desire is to walk. Is there anything we can do to make that possible? And all the doctors stood there with their mouths wide open. What? This, probably isn't possible or whatever. And I said, okay, Marty, why don't you hop down here off the table and we'll show them what you can do already. And then we'll see what they can do to help you. Well, they all stood there. They were just absolutely amazed that he could walk a few steps,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so is there a brace we can have developed, or is there some training that would be helpful or whatever? Well, anyway, that's the start of it all. We ended up where he walked until his mid-teens. And then with the number of surgeries and the complications, he basically was in a wheelchair, but it gave him that desire. It met that goal that he had to walk, even if he could only walk for a few years. And from there, it was, yes, sure.
Yeah. So in hearing you tell that story, it sounds like you had just instinctually the ability to see the possibilities right away, whereas the medical professionals were thinking more about what he couldn't do. He said, well, wait a minute. Let him show you what he can do first. Yeah, so that's pretty remarkable. So, okay, please continue.
Well, he was our first. And after that, we had our own son, who was born, unfortunately, with an immunoglobulin deficiency, like the boy in the plastic bubble. And he wasn't expected to live. But at this point, our son is now in a facility on 6 liters of oxygen. He's total care, but he's still alive at the age of 48. So that's a kind of an amazing situation. We go and visit him on a daily basis, and he is the president of the residence council there at that facility. And he is reaching out, just as we have, to other families. He's reaching out to other residents to help them to have a better quality of life, and advocating for their needs as they approach him with one thing or the other that they would like done or need help with or whatever. So that's much more fulfilling than just to lay in his bed and have oxygen flowing and whatever. But in any event, through the years, we did have 3 children. We had another daughter after that. Our oldest daughter, our firstborn, is a teacher in the St. Paul Public Schools. Our youngest daughter is a nurse, and she lives in Wisconsin. And so they've all 3 of the kids ended up working to help people have a better quality of life one way or the other. But through the years, then, of course, we've had 75 children. All of the children that come to us are placed usually through Ramsey County Child Protection Services. And they're all children that have been abused or neglected, or there's a family situation where the parents are unable to meet the needs of that child for one reason or another. And we subsequently, through the years, have adopted 8 of the children. And one of our children is a foreign-born child. And I met a foster parent one evening. We were at a recognition dinner, and she told me she was selling her home and all of her property and possessions, adopting her last 3 foster children, and starting an orphanage in Jamaica.
Mhm.
At the time, I had Girls and Girl
Yeah.
Scouting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just
Yeah,
quickly
sure.
interject? Thank you. Yeah. So we're going to go. That is definitely something we wanted to segue in. Sort of what happened from when you went on a service and mission trip, which is what I think you're about to talk to. Before we go there, I just wanted to ask you. So, are you fostering any children right now?
Yes.
Yes. So that would be included in the 75 that you have fostered over the years, and that spans from basically 1973 to today, or 75 to today. Yeah. Yeah, to present. Yeah. So that's amazing. So first of all, as I think our audience can see and hear, Claire has a remarkable story and has I don't want to minimize it, but I don't think I could find the words to realize the impact that you've had on individuals, individual lives. And a big part of that came from when you went to Jamaica and you focused on this service and mission. And we'd love to hear all about that.
Yes. Well, I really am puzzled sometimes why there aren't more services available here in this country. But until you see what's available here versus what's available in a third world country, it's just amazing. But unfortunately, many times over, people don't know where to find those services to help their child. And so even if the services are there, they're not always used. So it's really nice to know what things are available here in this country, and how to access those things so that your child, if they have a special need, you can find an organization and support to help you down that road so that you get the appropriate services so your child can make the biggest strides forward and be successful as adults. But like I had mentioned, I had met this woman and she told me about her mission, and I had Girls and Girl Scouting at the time, and a number of people that I told that I was going to go to Jamaica and help to set up this orphanage for this woman. And by the way, that orphanage is the number 1 orphanage on the island currently.
Oh, wow.
And it's called Robin's Nest Children's Home. And it was named Robin's Nest after Michelle Robinette, who is the founder. And our girls made quilts for the cribs and matching curtains and did wall murals and assembled furniture and did all those sorts of things. But while we were on the island, I asked if Michelle, the founder of Robin's Nest, could take us around to some of the other orphanages that were there so we could see what was available to help children. And if there were children in need, what could we do to improve the quality of their lives? And I noticed we went to government orphanages as well as another orphanage called West Haven Children's Orphanage. And that is in the mountains outside of Montego Bay, Jamaica. Michelle's orphanage was in Montego Bay. West Haven Children's Orphanage is sponsored by St. Andrew's Lutheran Church right here in Montemedi. And so they have sent down about probably 600 missionaries a year or so, but they have a very large congregation, and they do have an organization through their church known as Mission Jamaica. So we made contact with that orphanage as well, and until you see something like that, you just can't even imagine hospital bed after hospital bed after hospital bed side by side, no space in between, just wall to wall mattresses and 2 or 3 sometimes as many as 4 kids sideways on a mattress. Well, what about the kid that's at the wall? And how are those children sustained? Fortunately, I have to say that here in Minnesota, we have Feed My Starving Children. And so that rice porridge supplement ends up being the main nutrition for so many children on the island in orphanages. And unfortunately, they're sustained with a minimal amount of food, which, leaves them near starvation, unfortunately, so much of the time. But a wonderful organization as well. And without them, so many more children would be hungrier than they are currently. But anyway, we went through that orphanage and looked at those children to see what they needed. And I made a master list of, did a child need a wheelchair? Did it need to be a reclining wheelchair? Was it a regular wheelchair? About how big was the child and whatever, and what was the name of the child? And did the child need leg braces if they were going to stand or whatever? Well, we made a list of all these things that we thought might be possible to improve the quality of those children's lives. And then we came back and I talked to Easter Seals Goodwill, and I talked to the Shriners Hospital, and I talked to Gillette Children's Hospital. And those hospitals all had used leg braces, walkers, crutches, used wheelchairs that children outgrew. And then people would submit those back to the hospital. But then, if they weren't being used or whatever, what do you do? So we put in a request for what we made on our list. And a year later, we went back. And when we went back, we took a medical team from Gillette Children's Hospital with us. And Gillette was kind enough to give us a modulator so we could mold the braces, melt the braces down to a consistency where the plastic could be formed around children's legs. And so we were able to see children walk for the first time. We were able to see children move in wheelchairs. I was working with the technician, Bruce too, who is still an employee at Gillette. And he was a technologist who designs and modifies wheelchairs. And he was working on the wheelchairs. And I had all of these children all lined up, sitting on the floor and waiting for a wheelchair who could not walk. And as soon as the first wheelchair was ready, I was supposed to help the first little boy get in his chair. And before I could get that child up in the chair, Mark, who was the second child in line, crawled across the floor, hopped up in the chair, and took off. And, well, this was over 25 years ago, and so I could run then, too. And I ran after him and I said, "Hey, little fellow, there's a chair for you, but you have to wait your turn." And I brought him back and sat him in the chair that I was sitting in, and then put the first little boy in the chair, who was already crying because Mark took his chair. And Mark sat in my lap and he sang, "Jesus loves me, this I know." And I said, "You're pretty cute." And he said, "Yes, I know." Oh boy, he was something else and then some. Anyway, so I had him in my lap and I noticed the birth defect that he had. I had already adopted 2 children with that same birth defect. And I also knew through their medical care here in the United States what they would require in order to sustain life. And I also noticed that Jamaica did not have those resources to save his life. And I thought this was a human being that really deserved to be saved. And so I asked him if he'd like to go to the United States. And he said, "You mean America?" And I said, yes. And he said, yes, I'll go with you. When the band comes up the mountain to get the missionaries, I'll go with you. And I said, well, it won't be that fast. But I came back, and one of the doctors that had gone down through Mission Jamaica, through St. Andrew's Lutheran Church, he had requested that the Twin City Shriners Hospital take care of Mark. And so Mark was accepted there, and we ended up being the foster family that took care of him, because they would do free medical care for international outreach children, but they had to have somebody that would sustain them while they were doing the care. And once he arrived here, we began to do his adoption process, because that takes a number of years.
Quick question. So what age was Mark when he arrived here?
Mark came to this country when he was 5.5. And he started kindergarten in Mounds View at Pinewood Elementary School. And that was our neighborhood school. And oddly enough, not only did we have Mark, but there was another little boy who ended up in kindergarten, and he had been in a fatal car crash, and he also was in a wheelchair. And so Mark and this other boy, Lucas, became best friends. And so frequently Lucas came to our house. And over time, I figured out through talking to him and talking to his father, who was trying to take care of him at the time, that he had been in a fatal car crash. And not only had he been in the crash, but he had 2 sisters that were also in the crash. And all of them were airlifted to Gillette, and they were given last rites, and none of them expected to live. So you can imagine the severity. But anyway, Lucas and Mark became really good friends, and so frequently, because we had a wheelchair accessible home and everything, Lucas would come to our house, and they would play with the little go-karts on the driveway and all kinds of stuff. We had all kinds of wheelchair accessible modifications to our home and everything, because they were not our first foster children, so to speak. We had many in the past. And so, they would shoot baskets. They would do all kinds of stuff while Lucas would be visiting for the weekend or whatever. And so ultimately, they started sports programming at the Courage Center. Okay. And so they played wheelchair basketball, and they did downhill skiing, and they did all sorts of soccer, floor hockey, you name it. And then they were members of an organization known as We Love to Play. And so they played softball with We Love to Play. All these opportunities are still available today. This was years ago, and they're all available today for children. And you might think, oh, my child's in a wheelchair. He or she might not be able to do this, that, or the other thing. But in fact, they will, once they see that it's possible for other children, then you're encouraging new children to have that opportunity and that teamwork, that camaraderie, that I can do it, instead of, oh no, you're disabled, so you can't participate or whatever. All of these things are made possible with opportunities where kids can have fun and do those sorts of things. I mean, of course, there's the organizations that are set up through Special Olympics. And I run a track program here, manage a track program. And Mark, of course, does a lot of the training for athletes that are at a high school level. Because if someone in a wheelchair wants to participate in track and field, sometimes the coach doesn't know how to train someone in a wheelchair. So Mark now, being a United States Paralympian, and I didn't get through all of that, but in any event, he is very active in sports and enjoys that. And so,
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, such a compelling and fascinating story, and it sounds like, you and Mark were meant to meet. It just the way you talk about him, getting in the chair first and then sitting in your lap, and from the hear you tell it, it just feels like he just instantly won you over, like it just was meant to be. But specifically, what I'm curious about, because I just watched some of the winter Paralympic Games, and I'm curious what events and when was Mark an Olympian?
Mark was the first athlete in the state of Minnesota to be on a high school track and field team. Okay. And he was on the track team at Irondale High School in Moundsview, New Brighton area. And he, of course, was so active through the Courage Center that one of the coaches that works with the track team through the Courage Center was a gold medalist from a foreign country, and his wife managed the program for adaptive sports through the Courage Center, and he was the coach that worked with Mark to teach him all the strategies from early on. And so he, of course, was like at the beginning, if you will, of what was possible. Now, of course, as he became more and more skilled at what he was doing due to the training that he received through the Courage Center, then he started getting to the times that he would need in order to compete internationally. So he was in high school, actually, when he first started traveling overseas with Team USA. And he has raced in London. He has raced in Doha, Qatar. He's raced in Puerto Rico. He's raced in Canada. All of these different events, of course, through the Olympics. And he did wheelchair basketball as part of the USA team, the United States Paralympic team in Australia at one point. So he's been around the world, and now he's 32. So what he's enjoying now is, yes, he does race somewhat, and we run a program for athletes that are in wheelchairs and have a variety of disabilities here in the state of Minnesota under USA Track and Field, through our team that we work with, which is Rolling Thunder. But Mark also goes from high school to high school, wherever there's an athlete that is in a wheelchair and the coach doesn't know how to train them, then Mark will show the coach all the techniques and teach them and work with the different schools to help them to train their athletes. And then we have a number of used wheelchairs that they can start out with, and then we'll hook them up with challenged athletes funding so they could get a wheelchair of their own. There's a lot of strategies, if you understand what I'm saying, that you can use. But the first thing is that you have to have an interest that you want to strive to accomplish. Unfortunately, they don't race in their manual chairs. If they are in a manual wheelchair, they don't race in those chairs. They race in a customized chair, and they're not cheap, and it takes a while to get one that fits the athlete. But teaching them all the skills and getting them started is what Mark works with different coaches and stuff to try to get them to accomplish those goals. Special Olympics is another wonderful organization that reaches out to help kids. And when you have that I can attitude, that goes for finding jobs, that goes for fitting into society, that goes for accomplishing independence, that goes for all sorts of things. And so things that you would never have imagined possible are possible because of the different participation and experiences that you have through sports and educational opportunities. And there's more employers that are reaching out as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, I could not agree more. And, it's a perfect kind of segue into the next topic I'd like us to kind of focus on. But you're right. I mean, everything leads to everything. Yeah. And, just the way you talk about sports, to me is the essence of why I love sports. It's not just about the game or winning a game or a race. It's really about community. And Mark, has, I think encapsulated that, and the fact that he's able to go around and empower coaches and other athletes, literally one by one, is, tremendously powerful. And as you know, APSE is about employment, and you were just going to, take us to employment. And I'd really like us to focus on that and kind of be in the employment arena for a little while, because I think you do have a lot of great ideas of ways young people particularly can prepare themselves, for employment, and just different ideas. And so, I'd love you to kind of talk to our audience about that, your thoughts on employment and how young people and adults too, but particularly young people can get themselves ready for to get involved out in the community in an employment capacity.
Okay. For one thing, I think what's really interesting is when a child goes to school and they graduate from high school, so many sometimes know what they want to do, sometimes don't know what they want to do. And a lot of times you have an education, but you're not sure where that's going to lead you. Before I talk about employment a little bit, I want to talk about transition, because I also served on the state transition task force to develop the program years ago, and then served on the 621, which is our local school district's task force to develop transition. But with transition, you get to apply some of the things you've learned in high school and elementary school and use them in a functional way that enables you to get a job, to live somewhat independently, to reach the goals that everyone else would like to reach step by step in more of a concrete learning format. And then organizations such as Kaposia or other employment agencies can find a job once you can identify the skills that you have and what the employer wants out of the person they want to hire. Then there can be a better match made, and the support services that an employment agency can make to someone who has a disability to make sure that they have the modifications, if there's any kind of accommodations that need to be made, and work with the different employers, if you will, to enable everyone to have a fuller life, a more complete life, to be able to do something functional, not just sit in the corner and wait for the cows to come home because they're not coming. So if, if a child can, grow up, feel confident, fit into society, and be functional, using the skills that they have to empower themselves to be employed in a functional job, that's fulfillment. That gives them confidence, makes them want to get up in the morning and go to work and earn a living, so to speak, instead of just hiding in the corner somewhere. And like I said, the sports stuff or any kind of a club or organization where you're working as a team to accomplish something, even if you're using like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or any of those kind of organizations, to work as a group to accomplish something, to give back to society, that's, much more fulfilling than sitting in the corner because I'm in a wheelchair now and I can't do anything. But you can do lots of things, and it's a matter of identifying what your strengths are and how you use those things together with your social abilities to be functional in the world of work and the world of being an adult, and feeling confident that you can give back to society that has helped you along the way. Now you can do something to show that you were worth helping. So I think there's many ways to look at how do you fit in, what can you do, and how successful can you be. And I know that through the years, many of our children have used the organization of Composure, for instance, to help find jobs and have a job coach work with them to make sure that they understand what it is that they're supposed to do while on the job site, and try to help them to be successful and set up transportation and do all the things that need to be done in order to make you successful in the real world you live in. So I think that, it's a step-by-step process. There's lots of organizations out there, but if you're a parent of a child that needs these services, but you don't reach out to get those services for your child, then the child falls kind of behind. So, reaching out to ask, where do I go to get this, that, or the other thing, whatever it is that you feel your child would benefit from. You have that child in your care 24/7. So while you have that child, you really know that child kind of backwards and forwards, but you might not know how to help that child. So reach out to different organizations. And there's things like Disability Linkage Line, which will help refer you to different organizations. There's county social workers that'll help reach out to benefit you. Even in transition, there's all kinds of different services provided through transition through your school district to help you to get the best out of the world you live in. Organizations like, Special Olympics or Rolling Thunder or many other different organizations are out there to give a child a creative ability to interact with people that love to do the same sorts of things that you love to do. And what it could be art, it could be music, it could be anything. But of course, a lot of our kids have benefited from different sports options. But there's lots of resources out there. But if you don't reach out to get them, then your child doesn't benefit. So I'd encourage you to look around and see. You notice whether your child likes to draw, or whether your child likes to paint, or whether your child likes to do diamond art, or whether your child likes to do sports or or sing in a choir or whatever, make sure those opportunities are made available to them as soon as they expressed an interest that they would like to learn how to do those things.
Yeah. If I may, I really appreciate all the things that you just said. You gave, particularly if there's any, say, parents out there listening today that feel stuck, maybe don't know what steps to take to help their child or young adult, teenager start making progress towards being able to participate in the community in meaningful ways. I think you've given anybody that might be listening in that situation some concrete ideas and something to think about. And it's interesting to hear you talk because what we do, at APSE and the organization, that I work for is really simply try to help people connect to their communities through employment in meaningful ways. And that usually happens the best when you do it, when you connect with somebody over a mutual interest. What you said about, whether you're in a sport or a club or a choir, what have you, if it's something that you're interested in and the people you're interacting with are also interested, that's really kind of where the magic happens. Do you have any words of wisdom or, final messages? And somebody's phone is going off. There's a little bird in your purse. That's fine. You can quiet the bird if you want. And it's not I don't know if anybody out there watches The Office, but I stole that from The Office. So when Andy was on the stage and his phone was going off, and he said he had a bird in his pocket. So anyhow, do you have any final words? Well, this is live theater, sort of, so to speak, as we're recording the APSE podcast here today. Words of wisdom for maybe somebody that is feeling like they can't do it.
If you can't do it, there's always someone out there that will help you. And the problem is that people wait too long without reaching out. I have to say that through the years, so many parents, while we'd sit and watch games or whatever at the Courage Center, we'd sit in the lobby and they'd say, "Oh, I don't know how to accomplish this," or "I don't know where to go for that," or whatever. And all the parents would sit around and they would share different things they did to solve those problems. And I have to say that some of my best friends I've helped along the way to get services. And I have to laugh because after all these years and having all these kids, the special ed director of the school district came up to me on the night of graduation from transition and said, "Oh, this is your last child." Well, I said, "Don't count on it." She said, "Well, as your last child graduates or whatever, I won't miss you marching into my office and demanding this, that, or the other thing. Speak up for your children. Make sure that they're getting the things they're entitled to, and they will benefit over the long haul." But I just laugh about that because, I can't even, tell you how many times I marched in and said, "You need to change this on the IEP. You need to make this possible. You need to make that possible. Did you know about this, that, or the other thing?" And it's that communication that helps, even if something's written in writing in an IEP or a service plan for a child in school, it does not mean that that's being done. So it's up to you to check on those things.
I'm going to give this right back. But for anybody out there that does not know what an IEP is, can you tell them that what that is?
Okay, when your child is assessed for services through the high school or through the elementary school, if they have some sort of disability or a special need, no matter what it is. The school is mandated to provide services in the form of a contract, which is called an individual education plan. And they have to provide those services to meet the needs of the child's specific special need. So if it's help in reading, or if it's visual help, or if it's, it can be as diverse as you could possibly name. Those things are mentioned in the IEP as mandates, and the school district is responsible to provide those services. And that is to enhance the possibility for the child to learn. But over the long haul, what you're wanting this child to be as successful in society as possible. And you have to take the necessary steps. And as an advocate for your child, you're probably going to have to check that IEP. Make sure that all the things that are listed in that individual education plan are being not only monitored, but also adhered to, so that that child has the best chance at learning, has the best chance at overall success when the day is done, so to speak. And if you do advocate for your child, they're going to have a much more successful education option, and then a much more successful employment option, a much more successful independent living option, and in general, be successful and contributing to society as a functional individual. Use all the resources that are out there. If you don't know where to find them, make sure that you reach out to different organizations, whether it be the hospital where you go to get the care for the child, or like Gillette. They have social service agencies there. They will refer you to different organizations that can help you. Make sure that if you don't feel like you can do this on your own, you reach out for somebody to help you. And that's how you're going to make it down the path and be successful. And your child is going to be successful, and you're going to have a much more rewarding, successful lifestyle for that child. And use all the services that are there. And people are out there trying to help individuals be successful, and they can be successful. They all have abilities. They may have a disability, but they all have abilities. And if you ignore the abilities, then there's no chance that the child is going to be successful. So remember, not just look at the disability, be practical about that, but look at the ability of that child. You brought this child into this world, and you have an obligation to make sure that that child is successful, and you can advocate and you can make it all happen by reaching out to the correct resources to make it happen for your child.
Yeah. Wow. Claire, thank you so much for that. I've always sort of had a saying or belief that none of us do it alone, and none of us have to do it alone. We all need people in our corner. You've certainly been a person in other people's corner to multiple people for multiple years. As you're talking, I'm sort of a unique saying kind of person, and I just sort of things come into my brain. And as you're talking, I just thought, if your heart had a sign on it, it would say, "Welcome, please come in," and you've provided that, and you continue to provide that. Your journey's not over by any means. But the advice you just gave, I think, to any parents out there listening, or just people in general, are very right on point to with what APSE's message is, which is really possibility and the beliefs of possibility, and focusing on what you can do more than what you can't do, yeah, it's just really beautifully said. I don't think I could sit here and try to replicate or say it any better. It was just absolutely beautiful, and it encapsulates, our message, to a T. I don't know if there's anybody I've sat with, on a podcast that truly is living and breathing, my final words that I always like to say, so just thank you so much, for being here today, on behalf of our fabulous guest, Claire Braun, and our fabulous producer, Dana Eisfeld, who really makes this all happen. I have the easy job. I show up and sit in a chair and talk once in a while. This is Chris Davies reminding you all to, please be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And if you believe it, you can achieve it.